Hello everyone, welcome to this session on continuous integration using Jenkins. Today in this session, we will see how we can go ahead and create a CI/CD pipeline in Jenkins, wherein we will try to create an automated pipeline that will basically go ahead and deploy code whenever we will upload it on GitHub. Right? So this is what we are going to do by the end of this session. So let's go ahead and see what all we'll be covering in the agenda. So, guys, we'll start off this session by first discussing what is continuous integration and then move on to discuss what is Jenkins. Once you've understood what Jenkins is, we'll move on and discuss how you can go ahead and install Jenkins on AWS, followed by the Jenkins architecture. Once you're done with that, I'll show you guys how you can go ahead and add nodes on Jenkins, right? And then we'll see what are CI/CD pipelines, followed by a hands-on where I'll show you guys how to create an automated CI/CD pipeline. So guys, this is the agenda for this session. I hope it's clear to you. Now let's go ahead and get started with our first topic, which is what is continuous integration. So guys, continuous integration is basically a stage in DevOps which helps you to integrate all the DevOps tools together continuously. What does that mean? That since the DevOps pipeline, it goes on forever and ever. And why does that happen? Is because, let's say, you go ahead, you are a developer and you go ahead and you push your code to, let's say, a version control system like GitHub. Now, once this is done, the continuous integration tool, which in this case is Jenkins, it automatically basically gets pointed out, or it gets notified that new code has been added, and this Jenkins server basically picks up this code, deploys it on the testing server, and if the testing is successful, it deploys it on the production server. Now, what happens is once this is deployed, obviously there will be some feedback, right? If it's on the testing server and some bug comes, so this bug will be reported to the developer, and the developer will again have to deploy the code on version control system. Or let's say there was no bug in the testing server, but when it has been deployed on the production server, some users report that the UI can be modified, or it can be improved in some manner. So that feedback also goes back to the developer. So since the feedback comes in continuously, whatever product you deploy, whenever you will be testing a new feature, the feedback will be coming back continuously. So this whole life cycle is a continuous process. No matter whether your software is deployed on the production system or it's still in the nascent stage where it's deployed on the testing server, the feedback always comes and the developer has always off to work, and the new code is always pushed on the version control system, because of which the continuous integration server is again invoked. So this is a cycle which goes on and on, no matter what the use case. And that is why this stage or this process is called continuous integration, right? So in what is integration in this case? Integration is basically this tool is so versatile that it can basically integrate itself with any DevOps tools, right? And since over here, we are not only integrating the version control system with testing server, we're also integrating it with the production server, right? So this tool becomes a heart for connecting all the different kind of tools which are there in DevOps, so that they can work as an organism, right? Or it can work as a machine, right? And this is what continuous integration is. The process of continuously integrating all the DevOps tools to basically create a DevOps pipeline and achieving our purpose or deploying the application is basically called a continuous integration stage. Okay. Moving forward, now what are the basically advantages of continuous integration? You get frequent commits, because of which you can do even small feature release, so you don't have to worry about following a lot of checklists in order to deploy software. Since over here everything is predefined, you can be rest assured that every commit or every software or every piece of code that you release is going to go through the same process again and again, because of the continuous integration tool, right? So in continuous integration tool, you can define all the things that have to be done once a code is deployed. And if there are, let's say, 100 steps in order to deploy a code, now because a system is involved, a machine is involved, you can be rest assured that all those 100 steps have to be followed. And then you don't have to basically worry about doing even small releases or small code changes to your production system, multiple times a day. Why? Because that checklist will be followed each and every time. So now you have the ability to do frequent commits. You also can do automated build and testing. What basically we mean by that is that the developer does not have to wait for the testing team. If he wants to check his code, because the testing team now has the ability to create automated test cases, which they can also integrate with Jenkins, with the help of which they can be also triggered automatically for the code which is being deployed. The job becomes more easy, right? And hence you can basically have more automated test cases and build cases. After that, you also get instant feedback to the developer. Now, because this developer is going to push the code and he is going to trigger automated build test cases, the feedback which we discussed earlier is also going to come automatically, right? So the instant feedback to the developer is also an option, and it is going to be a very low risk, and it is going to offer us faster delivery. Why is it going to be low risk? Because like I said, if you even have 100 steps to be followed to basically make a code live, those 100 steps, you can be rest assured, will be followed every time when you are basically deploying to the pipeline, right? So it is hence low risk, and it will result in a faster delivery of the code. Moving forward, now let's understand that we just discussed the pointers to what continuous integration is. Now, continuous integration can be basically implemented using many tools. And in this session today, we are going to discuss how continuous integration can be implemented using Jenkins. So what is Jenkins? Jenkins is basically an open source automation server, and it is basically built in Java, right? And it basically helps us to integrate different DevOps tools together and automate the whole process of the DevOps pipeline. So in a nutshell, this is what Jenkins is. So what are the features of Jenkins? So you can say the adoption of Jenkins is worldwide, and the sole reason for that is this is open source. Now, since this is open source, any new feature which probably is essential is probably a part of Jenkins, since it's basically developed by a community of developers. So who is better to decide like what is the best for them and what they need other than the developers, right? And that's why the adoption rate of Jenkins is the highest, reason being it's open source and hence very relevant. After that, the next thing is plugin support. So because this is an open source tools, there are a lot of plugins which have been developed for Jenkins for different type of integrations that are basically required in Jenkins, and hence that you can choose from thousands of plugins to decide if your tool can, whatever your DevOps tool might be, whether that can be integrated with Jenkins or not. And 99.99% will be the chances that whatever DevOps tool you're using, there will be a plugin for it in Jenkins, using which you can integrate it. So hence plugin support is also awesome, right? Now, if we were to discuss the advantages of Jenkins, I think it is pretty evident, but even then, let's summarize few points which are going to point us to what are the advantages of using Jenkins. So when you were not using Jenkins before, fixing bugs and events like building the code, etc., used to be very difficult and time consuming, because obviously it used to be a manual process. And to basically check when the code has been integrated or when the code has been committed to Git, and based on that, invoking the test cases, this all was a manual process, and it involved human, right? And whenever there is a human involvement, there is a room for error, right? Now with using Jenkins, because you are now into the automated phase, you do not even have to worry if you have to do smaller or frequent commits in a day, because every time the same process will be followed, and since this process is followed by a machine, there are no room for errors, right? Second thing is, like a point said, the triggers were the tests were triggered manually, and now the developers can basically trigger tests based on the code being pushed on GitHub, right? So they don't have to do anything, they just have to push their code on GitHub. The code will automatically be picked up by the CI server, will be tested, and the feedback will be given to them on their email, right? Third thing is, there is no central place for triggering jobs on remote systems. So if I want to trigger certain shell scripts on remote systems, there was no central place from where I can control all this. But with Jenkins, since I will be adding all the peripheral nodes as slaves in Jenkins, I can control everything from one place with respect to anything that I have to execute or add on the remote systems, right? So hence that is also something which is a advantage for us. After that, I think this would be enough for the introduction of Jenkins. And the most that you can understand about Jenkins is by actually looking at it and working with it, right? So let's now go ahead and see how we can install Jenkins on a cloud platform like AWS. So this is my AWS console, guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically go ahead and deploy an EC2 machine. So I have already deployed an EC2 machine. And let me show you that. Right, so this is my EC2 machine, Jenkins. So what I'm going to do is I will basically just do a quick SSH into it, and then we'll start installing Jenkins on this machine. Right, so this machine basically has around 4 GB of RAM. Right, so you can also install Jenkins on even 1 GB of RAM. Right, it's all up to you how you want to use it. So now let's go ahead and log into the server. So I'll just do a quick SSH. Right, and this is an Ubuntu machine, guys, where I'm basically going to go ahead and install Jenkins. So now what we can do to install Jenkins is we can follow a very quick guide. Right, so let's just type in install Jenkins on Ubuntu, and when you type that, you will find a lot of documentations. Let's say we use the DigitalOcean guide. Let's use that, and let's see if we can install Jenkins using this particular guide. Now, one thing that you need before installing Jenkins is Java, right? So let's go ahead and install Java. So we're gonna install the default JDK. So first of all, I'll have to update the machine. So let me do that. So sudo apt-get update. This is going to update my machine very quickly. After that, if you type in java-version, you will find Java not found. And in order to fix this, I will have to install JDK, which I can do using this command. Right, so basically Jenkins is being installed, and once it's done, I'll go ahead and install. Sorry, the machine is getting updated, and once this is done, I'll go ahead and basically install Java. All right, so the machine has now been updated, and as you can see, some 17 MB updates were done to the system. And now we can do what we can do is we can go ahead and we can install Java. Now this again will take some time, right? Because Java is again a heavy application. So it will take around a minute for installing Java. So while this is happening, let me make you go through the commands that we'll be using to install Jenkins. So this is basically a command which is going to download a key from the official package.jenkins.ci.org website, right? So once this key is added, what we'll do is to our source.list, we'll go ahead and include the Jenkins library, update the machine, and then we'll go ahead and install Jenkins. So it's a very simple 2-3 step process. Let's go ahead and do this. Now, sometimes you will encounter some problems because lately what has happened is the server which basically hosts Jenkins is a little slow. So you will sometimes see that the installation happens very slow. So we're gonna try and avoid that thing today, and let's see if we can actually get this done faster. Okay, so Jenkins is Java is being downloaded right now. So it's around 40 MB. So once this is downloaded, it will start installing it. All right, great. So Java is now being installed, and any dependency for it is being downloaded. Now, while this is happening, guys, what we can also do is we can deploy a slave as well. because even on the slaves, we will be required to install Java. So let's click on launch instances. And let's create one more Ubuntu machine, which is going to be around 2 GB of RAM. And networking will be default. Disk space will be default. Let's take the security group to be default. And let's launch the machine. Let's choose the key pair, acknowledge that we have it, and click on launch instance. So this machine now will be the slave machine for Jenkins. So while this is being while this is becoming ready for use, let me open a new tab in my terminal and let me make it ready for the SSH. So I go to downloads and let me type in the SSH command. And now I just have to enter the IP address. So this is the IP address. Let's copy it. Let's paste it over here. And let's refresh to check if the server is ready. So it's still in the pending state. Okay, now it's in the running state. Great. Hit enter. Now, if the server is ready, I should basically get a prompt. So if it's connection refused, that basically means the server is not ready yet. And now you can see the message changed, which basically means I should be able to connect. Yes, I'm able to. Let's update this machine as well. So the machine is getting updated. And once it's updated, we'll install Java over here as well. Okay, I can see the internet is a lot fast on this machine for some reason. So this is still at 99, and this is already 65% done. So as you can see, the internet here is around 12.5 Mbps. So let's do one thing. This machine of ours, let's make it master, and the other machine, let's make it slave, so that we can work a little more faster while things are being done. So let's make this as slave. Great. So coming back, this is 27% done. And here Java is successfully installed. So if this gets done a little faster, yes. So you can see here it took around 3 to 4 minutes, and here Java is already installed. So let's install Jenkins on this server. So now what I'll do is, since Java is installed, let's copy the wget command and paste over here. So the key is downloaded. Let's include the source list in Jenkins. And now let's update the machine. Okay, so we are getting it's not signed. All right. Why is it not signed? Let's check. Okay, what we can do is, if this is causing us a problem, we can go ahead and follow the official Jenkins directory as well. So install Jenkins on Ubuntu, and we can follow the official Jenkins doc, which is this. We are trying to install it on Ubuntu. So let's first download the key like this. Then we will update the list like this, and then we'll update the machine. And this should be fine. So yes, the official doc works. And now let's go ahead and install Jenkins. And you can see that although our internet was fast, but with this Jenkins server, it's giving us only half uh, of Mbps speed. And this is the reason that I was telling you guys that Jenkins servers in themselves are a little slow to release the download. So you'll have to be a little patient over here for the installation to get complete. So Jenkins size is around 70 MB, right? As you can see over here. So let's wait for that time, and then Jenkins will be installed for us. So for some reason, this DigitalOcean guide is not working anymore. So we'll close it. And with this, we should be having Jenkins in another 1 or 2 minutes. All right, so we're halfway done. So even when you guys install it, you will feel the same. That although your internet is fast, still when you are trying to download Jenkins, it will be a lot slower. And the sole reason is, I mean, the official Jenkins servers, they their bandwidth on them is like very slow. So as you can see, from half Mbps, we have now reached 200 kbps, right? And this is all because of Jenkins servers. Nevertheless, so both our slaves are ready. So here, if we do a Java hyphen version, we can see that Java is successfully installed on the slave. So next step would be that once Jenkins is installed, we'll go ahead and set up the plugins. And once the plugins are set up, the recommended plugins are set up in Jenkins, then we'll just go ahead and we'll see how to manage a node on Jenkins. Okay. All right, so let me come back to my slide. So once Jenkins is installed, guys, we will move forward. For now, let me go ahead and show you the Jenkins architecture. So this is what a Jenkins tool is, guys, and these are the various DevOps tools that you have. And the job is Jenkins is to basically integrate all these DevOps tools together, right? And this is done using plugins. So any DevOps tool that you connect to, Jenkins will be able to connect to it using a plugin, right? And that's why, the first time that you install Jenkins, it will ask you to download the recommended plugins. And with that, you will be able to integrate Jenkins with different DevOps tools which are out there. Now, when we talk about the architecture that we are going to follow today, we are basically going to have one slave and one master, right? So we are basically going to have one build server where basically our website is going to be deployed, and the place where basically we are installing Jenkins, that'll be the place which will basically be called as Jenkins master. Now, one cool thing about using Jenkins is that whichever slave you want to connect it to, on the slave you need not install Jenkins. So over there you can use a protocol called JNLP, And using that protocol, you can basically connect the master and the slave, right? So so instead of having two, we are just going to have one server, and on this server, we are basically going to go ahead and build our website. Okay. So next step would be managing nodes, and this is exactly what we are going to do. So almost just 10 or 12 MBs are left in order to install Jenkins. So in order to add the slave in Jenkins, like I told you guys, we will be using the JNLP connection. You can also connect using SSH. That is also an option, but when you have to do SSH, you'll have to do some settings in order to have that SSH connection built. In case of JNLP, it's very easy. All you have to do is just pass a command which Jenkins is going to give you on the slave, and that is about it. Your slave will get connected to Jenkins within seconds, right? And that is exactly what we are also going to do. Okay. So as you can see, the Jenkins server has become very painfully slow. So hopefully this will be completed soon now. But again, like I said, if this also happens to you, don't worry. This is not your problem. It's just that the Jenkins servers are a little slow to work with. You don't have to worry about it. There are a couple of workarounds for this as well. What you can also do is you can go ahead and install Jenkins using or use Jenkins on Docker. But when you do that, since we also have to add a slave, adding a slave becomes a problem. So that's why what we are doing is we are natively installing Jenkins, which will actually be the case when you're also using it on production systems, right? So this is what exactly we are trying to mimic. We are natively installing Jenkins, and the only reason it's slow is because of the source servers. So 5 MB more to go, and then we should be good. So few more minutes, guys. Almost 4 MB is left. So what I can do is let me cover the rest of the topics, and then we can come back over here again. Okay. So, what are CI/CD pipelines? Let's go ahead and understand that. So, guys, CI/CD pipeline is a pretty important concept when you're dealing in Jenkins, and whenever you will actually be working on it, this is the one thing that you will be creating a lot of times in order to work with Jenkins, right? So, what is a pipeline exactly? A pipeline basically is a process, or it's a sequence of steps at the end of which you basically get a finished application, right? So you start off by committing your code on GitHub, and what Jenkins does is it basically picks up that code and it makes it go through various steps, during which the final output that you get is a finished application on the production server, right? Now these sequence of steps you have to define. So these steps could range anywhere between downloading the code from GitHub, to building the code, to running a Docker, then putting that Docker container into a running state, uh, injecting environment variables inside it, stopping containers, deleting containers. It could be any n number of steps that you probably are doing, right? So, for example, if you're dealing with a full-fledged DevOps pipeline, in that there might also be some configuration management steps. There might also be some build steps using Maven, right? There might also be steps for testing, which probably could be some Selenium test cases or JUnit test cases that you're trying to run. So all these are different or small steps, combining which you basically create a pipeline. And by the end of this pipeline, what you get is a finished application. So this is what a CI/CD pipeline is. Right now, today in this session, today what we are going to do is we are basically going to configure GitHub to connect to our Jenkins tool automatically. So the moment we are basically going to commit to GitHub, my Jenkins tool is going to detect, okay, so there is some change, and based on the change, it is basically going to download the code on the system. And once the code has been downloaded on the system, it will trigger another small job, whose job will basically be to build the website by copying the file inside the root directory of the website server, which in this case would be Apache 2, right? So that is what is going to happen in the second step, which is build website. All right, so this is what we are going to do today, and I think we should be done by now. Only 2 MBs left, so let's just hope this completes, and then we can actually start working on Jenkins. Okay, so the speed seems to be a little better now. All right, so Jenkins has been downloaded, guys, and now it's just installing. So this should be a lot faster since the package has been downloaded now. All right, so now Jenkins has been successfully installed. And now what we can do is we just have to go to service Jenkins status. And with this, you can see the Jenkins process has been started, which means Jenkins can now be used. And now if I go to my master server, and all I have to do is not just select slave, I should have the IP address. And this IP address, if I put in my browser now, I will be able to see the sign in page of Jenkins. And this basically means unlock Jenkins. So I'll just have to take this file path, which is going to have the initial password, go to my terminal and do a cat. All right, this is the password. Let's copy it, paste it here, click on continue. And with this, you now will be able to log into Jenkins. And now you can see it's asking you to install suggested plugins, right? So just click over here and it will install all the required plugins in order for you to work on Jenkins. So it is going to install the plugin for Git, for SSH build agents, for GitHub branch source, etc. Right? And these are basically required to start off with Jenkins to work on it. And these should be good enough. Okay. So the plugins are getting installed, but this again is, downloaded from the Jenkins server, and that's why it's taking a little time. And here you can basically have a look at whatever steps are being taken. So build type now timeout plugin has been installed. So while this is happening, guys, let me check if I can quickly change to some other region and we can try the same process, because this is going painfully slow and I'm not sure how when this will complete. So what we'll do is we'll quickly deploy one server in some other region. I was in Mumbai. Let me try out by deploying one server in Ohio, and let us see if this is going to be a little more faster. So I'll deploy an Ubuntu server, and this is going to have around 4 GB of RAM. It's going to be part of the default network. I'm gonna have the default firewall. And let's go ahead and click on launch. And let's select the key that we have, acknowledge that we have it, and launch our instances. Let's say it's our master. Let's select the IP. Let's open one more tab. Try to connect. So server is not ready yet, and that's why we can see this is going to give us a connection refused kind of a thing. It usually does not take this much time, but I'm not sure. I think with AWS, the servers are a little slow today. Hmm, let me check what the problem is. All right, everything looks good. Okay. Let's try and launch one more instance. Okay, I think we found the problem. So the problem is that SSH is not open. Let me open it. And let's save the rules. And now let's try to connect. Okay, let's update this machine. And now once this is done, let's go ahead and install default JDK. While this is being installed, let's copy this wget command. So as you can see, the installation is still going on. It's taking a lot of time for some reason. So what we're doing is we're trying it out in some other region to see if it's going to work over there. Okay, JDK is installed. And now let's pass in the wget command. Done. The sudo command. Done. The update command. Done. And now let's install Jenkins. Okay, so over here it seems to be a lot faster for some reason. So let's see if you can actually configure Jenkins in this server itself. Okay, Jenkins is installed on this system. Let's try and connect to it. This is the IP address. Let's take in this, pass in the secret. Install the suggested plugins. And it is a lot faster over here. As you can see over here, it's still in the initialization stage, but however, because of some reason, in the Ohio region, it's working perfectly fine. So it could be that the Indian Jenkins servers are very slow. And because of that, the installation is taking a lot of time. But over here, you can see, everything is being installed perfectly. Great. So what we can do is we can just close up this installation setup. And since it's happening a lot faster over here, let's go ahead and use this Jenkins. So the getting started for this Jenkins is almost complete. We can give the username. Let's give it a Hemant. Let's give some password also over here. I'll give my full name as Hemant Intellipaat and give the email as hemant@gmail.com. Let's save and continue. And with this, our Jenkins configuration is complete and we can start using Jenkins now. So this is how the dashboard for Jenkins looks like, guys. And now what we are going to do is we're going to add a node to this Jenkins. So in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to deploy a slave also over here. So let's create a slave machine. So again, it's going to be of the Ubuntu machine type. The machine size is going to be t2.medium. Let's select that. This is the machine specification. Let's click on next. This is the machine size, which is also good. In terms of firewalls, this is going to be the default firewall that we are going to use, which is this. Review and launch. Let's launch it. Select the key. Acknowledge that we have it and launch the instances. Now, once the machine is launched, we can just go ahead and name it as slave. Save it. And now this will be the IP address of the machine. We'll connect to it. Meanwhile, what I can show you is the settings that we have to do on this server. So what you have to do is click on Jenkins. And we basically have to go to Manage Jenkins. Click over here on Manage Jenkins. First thing first, you'll have to go to Configure Global Security. And over here, we'll have to do a setting, which is going to be for TCP ports for inbound agent. And you have to change it to random. And that's about it. Click on Save. So this is the first setting that you have to do. The second thing that you have to do is go to Manage Nodes and Clouds. And over here, we are going to go ahead and add a new node. And let's call this node as slave-1. And it's going to be a permanent agent. Click on OK. Now, once this is done, what you'll have to do is you will have to choose the launch method, and that's going to be launch agent by connecting it to the master. This is this is the correct method that we have to choose. The remote root directory, this you have to specify. So let's say it's going to be /home/ubuntu/Jenkins. So Jenkins is a folder that will get created automatically. Okay, with this, let's save it. And now what we are going to get is an entry over here in the slave list. Click on this entry and you will get this command, which will now go ahead and run on our slave. So coming back to our terminal, we can just close up the other tabs for our terminal. This is our Ohio machine. Let's connect to our Ohio slave. And the IP address for this slave is going to be this. Okay, so this is going to be Mac, Ohio. One spelling mistake over here. And with this, I'm connected to my machine. And now what I can do is I can go ahead and update this machine, and then I can install JDK on this machine as well. And once the JDK is installed, we will go ahead and run that command that we got from Jenkins. Now this is done. Let's go ahead and install the JDK. Let's hit on yes. So JDK is now installed, and now what we can do is we can go ahead and run the Jenkins command. So now that JDK is installed, let's go to Jenkins. Let's copy this command. And this command has to run with sudo, right? So we also will be creating a folder called Jenkins in this home directory. And let's run the sudo command now. Hit enter. Okay, there's one more thing that you have to do. You have to basically go ahead and copy this agent.jar. So let's download it. This will be downloaded in the downloads folder. This is agent2.jar. Let me go ahead and see it in the Finder once. And what I need to do is I first will sort everything based on kind, and then I'll just move to the jar files. Let's search for agent in downloads. So I can remove the earlier entries, and we'll have to rename this as agent.jar. And now all I have to do is copy this to the slave, right? So let's copy it. Go to downloads. And the file name would be agent.jar. And this has to be copied on this server, on this IP address. Okay, so I'll have to copy the command again. Give me a moment. This is going to be the command, and I will be copying the IP address of the slave, and the directory will be /home/ubuntu. So once this is copied, the agent.jar file, I will just view it in the terminal. So it's copied. If I do an ls over here, you can see that the agent.jar has been copied, and now I'll just run the sudo command again. And now you can see it is connected. It has successfully connected to Jenkins. And if I go to Jenkins over here, right now you can see it says connect agent to Jenkins. If I refresh, it says agent is connected. So this is how you go ahead and connect a machine to your Jenkins master. So now that Jenkins has been connected, what we can do is we can return to the home page. And now let's start creating a pipeline. So what I'm going to do is let's first create let's first have a GitHub where basically we are going to upload everything. Let's create a new repository on GitHub. Let's call it, today's 4th November, so we'll call it demo 04 November. It's going to be a public repository. Click on create repository, and this is it. Next thing they'll have to do is you'll have to go to settings. In settings, you will have to go to webhooks, and in webhooks, you will basically have to add a webhook, and here you'll have to add a webhook for your Jenkins. Right? So in this payload URL, just copy the Jenkins URL like this and add GitHub -webhook in the end. So when you do that, it will basically add the webhook like this. And in some time, if it shows you green, that means the webhook has been added successfully. What is a webhook? It basically it helps you to connect to your Jenkins job automatically once anything is pushed over here, right? So if this works fine, there will be a green tick over here, which should tell you that, okay, so this green tick came. This means the this repository of mine that I just created is successfully connected to Jenkins. So now all I have to do is push some code over here. So let's say I go to my slave, right? Let's connect to my slave again. So also remember, guys, don't close this window, right? This window is very important. Don't close this window where you have the connection set up. And now I will just go ahead, connect to my slave, and let's write some code over there, which we are going to upload to Jenkins. So let's create a directory called code. And in this directory, I'll just initialize git like this. Once git is initialized, I'll go ahead and add index.html, let's say. And this index.html is going to, let's say, have an h1, which means welcome to Intellipaat. Let's say this is a website that we are going to add to my slave web server automatically using Jenkins. So this is the index.html. Let's push it to GitHub. So let's commit this file. File is committed. Let's push it to the origin. So I'll have to add the origin now. So origin will be the GitHub URL, which in my case is this. Let's add it. And now let's push it. So git push origin master. It'll ask me the username. Username is this. It'll ask me the password. Password is this. Okay. Let me type the password a little more carefully. So now the file is being pushed on GitHub, and if I do a refresh, you can see an index.html has been added to my GitHub. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I will on this slave install a software called Apache 2. And now let me show you the thing that we are exactly going to do. So if I come down to my EC2 instance, so right now you can see that this is the website that is there on this server. This is the Apache 2 default page. So what we are going to do is whatever website we have on GitHub, Jenkins will automatically replace that with this website. So let's see how we can configure that. So first, let's create a job. This will basically be a Git job. All right, sorry guys, there was some internet issue. So as I was saying, we'll first create a Git job. So let's create that Git hyphen job, right? It'll be a freestyle project. Let's click on OK. And with this job will now be created. And now what we are going to do is we are basically going to create a GitHub project. One thing, let's verify quickly if I can use a terminal. Jenkins is connected and I can use this terminal as well. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I am basically going to tell my Jenkins which GitHub code to basically push or pull, right? So this is the GitHub code that I want to pull. So let's copy the repository and in my Jenkins, include it in the project URL. Okay. So this is the project URL, which is, or this is the code which is going to be pulled. And this basically has to be pulled on a certain system. So I'm going to restrict that this project should only run on slave 1, which is this. Okay. So this is a slave on which this job is going to run. And what it is going to do is it is basically going to pull this GitHub project. Great. So source code management, let's again mention that this is the URL, which is basically going to be used. Great. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to basically, do this job whenever there is a push to the GitHub repository, which is on the webhook. And for that, we have to enable this option which says GitHub hook trigger for Git SCM polling. So this will automatically start this job whenever there will be a push to this particular repository. Okay. After that, build environment. Do we want to do anything over here? No, we don't. And first, let's go ahead and try this out. So this is basically going to pull our Git code. So let's save this particular job. And this is done. And right now, this is my job which has been created. So right now, if I go to my server, if I go inside the Jenkins repository, I can see there is a folder called remoting, but there's no other folder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on build now for this job, and let's see what happens. So right now I'm building this particular job manually. Later on, we'll see how we can do it automatically as well. So right now I've built this job manually, and you can see the job is successful. And you can see the console output like this, that it's basically a success message. So if I come back to my terminal and do an ls over here, you can see there's a workspace folder here. Okay. So if I go inside the workspace folder, there's a job, my job name is over here, which is Git job. If I go inside Git job, if I do an ls, you can see I have the index.html file, and this is the index.html file which I created in GitHub, right? Welcome to Intellipaat. Now what I want to do is I want to basically move this index.html file to its source folder, which is /var/www/html, which is basically the folder for the Apache 2 directory, where basically this website is present. Okay, so we want to change this website. So what we're going to do is we're going to create one more job, and let's call this job as build website. So we'll create a new item, call this job as build-website. It will be a freestyle project. Click on OK. And here the only thing that I'm going to add is click on add build step, click on execute shell, which basically means there will be something which will run on the terminal. And let's here add sudo mv, that is move. What should we move? We want to move whatever is there in this directory. that is the index.html file. We want to move it to /var/www/html. This folder we want to move it to, right? So we'll click on save. So this is the only thing that we want to do. And now let's try to build this particular job, which is build website. Let's see what happens. So click on build now, and let's see what happens. So it's giving me an error. Let's see what the error is. Okay. It says a terminal is required to read the password. Either use the -s option to read from standard input or configure an ASPAS header. Okay. So this happens when Jenkins does not have sudo access. So we can give Jenkins sudo access. So sudo access to Jenkins. If you search for this, all you have to do is go to this particular folder. Okay. And we have to add this particular line. So let's go to this particular folder. And here we are basically going to go ahead and add the Jenkins user, which is this. Save this. And with this, if I quickly do a sudo cat on this, I should be able to see that my Jenkins user has been added. Great. So Jenkins user has been added. And now let's try to rerun this Jenkins job. So again, let's click on build now. Again, there's an error. Let's see what this error says this time. Okay, so it says sudo terminal. Okay, let's try to check this as well. Okay, let's try to follow this particular command and see if it's fix it. Because basically we don't want Jenkins user to be asked any password, right? This is done, and let's go ahead and try this out. So let's go back to the project. Let's click on build now again. Okay, again we are getting an error. Let's try to fix this as well. Okay, let's try to add the -s option that we are getting in the terminal, which is this. And that should basically give us the user who is basically trying to do this. I think it's Jenkins, but if it's not Jenkins, let's figure out what is trying it. So let's go back to project, click on configure, go to shell, which is this. So sudo -s, save it, build it again, and it will give us an error that we know, but let's see what it is saying. Okay, so password for Jenkins, no password was provided. All right, let's try to just restart Jenkins once, and I think that should also give us some answer. Okay, I think one more thing that we are doing wrong over here is we are trying to do it on the slave, right? So let's try to do it on the master as well. So we'll go to sudo and let's try over here if we are able to pass the Jenkins as a sudo user, right? So what I'll do is I will go back here, pass in this command on the master, and let's add the Jenkins user here as well. Done. And now let's try and run this project again. Okay, so I think we have solved the problem. So the problem is that we didn't restrict it to run on slave 1, and that is why this problem is coming. So we'll just click on configure, and we have to restrict this. So this is running on the master now, where it is not able to find the index.html, because the index.html is actually present on slave. So let's save it, click on build now, and I think this should be solved now. So as you can see, we got a blue ball, which means the output is correct, and you can see it's success now. So if we go back over here on this page, click on refresh, you can see we got welcome to Intellipaat. Now you might think, okay, so this was a little manual. Now let me show you the magic over here. So what we are going to now do is we're going to connect the first job to the second job, and then you will understand the power of pipeline. So these are two different jobs. One is pulling the code, the other is basically building the website. So we're now going to go to this Git job, configure it, and now we are going to add post build actions and build other projects. And we are only going to trigger them if this build is stable. And the project that we want to build is build-website, which is this, right? And save it. Okay, so now what should happen is if I go to my build website, you can see there's 6 commits over here. So what I'll do is I'll go back to my slave, and now I'll just go to my code folder where my GitHub code is present. Let's go ahead and change this index.html. Let's say welcome to Intellipaat from Jenkins pipeline. Save it. Stage this change, commit this change, change text. Let's say this is the commit name. Committed, and let's now push it. This is the username, and this is the password. Again, let me type it in, this time a little slowly so that it's correct. Great, so my file has been pushed, and now let's wait for everything to happen automatically, right? So in some time, I should see that there is a new, as you can see, automatically a commit happened over here. I'm not doing anything, and it is successful, right? So which basically means if I go to my website and I refresh over here, you can see I got welcome to Intellipaat from Jenkins pipeline. And this all happened without me doing anything. Let me show you one more time. So I'm not going to open Jenkins now. I'm just going to go to my code. Let me edit this once more. And let's say welcome to Intellipaat from Jenkins pipeline. And I add an H2 over here, which says this is automatic. Close this H2. Save this, stage this, commit this, third commit, let's say this is, and now let's push it. So one thing for sure that I'm showing you is that this code folder is nowhere linked to my file, right? Now the moment I push it, you will see that it all happens automatically. Now, I as a developer, I need not go to Jenkins, or I don't have to understand anything. Now, in the next 10 to 15 seconds, this is going to be updated automatically. So let's refresh this. In the next 10 to 15 seconds, you will notice that this website will automatically be updated. Can you see? Automatically a text was added over here, which is this is automatic, and this is all being done by Jenkins, and I don't have to deal with Jenkins. I just have to push my code to GitHub, see my website in the next 10-15 seconds, it will automatically be updated, right? And this is how you create a pipeline in Jenkins, an automated pipeline in Jenkins, right? So with that, guys, we come to an end to this session, right? So I hope you guys have learned something new. So obviously this will take some time to get your mind around, but this will help you out in basically getting an automated pipeline. Now you can do a lot of things over here. You can create a Docker file, or you can integrate with configuration management servers. Slowly and steadily, you will understand more and more how this Jenkins can actually integrate with a host of other tools as well. All right, so with that, guys, I thank you all for joining in. I hope this session was useful to you. I'll see you in some other session. Have a great day ahead, and goodbye.